Welcome to episode 3. Launching your product is as easy as these 5 steps.
Welcome to the PR Playbook podcast with Ranjini Joshua, the only podcast that teaches you how to strategically navigate the world of public relations and social media and grow a powerful brand.
Welcome back. I'm excited for this episode because I love launching products. It's probably one of the most exciting things that a public relations person gets to do, especially when it's consumer tech. So that's really fun. But in my opinion, I think it's also the most rewarding thing. You've spent months, maybe years, taking your product from concept to completion, and now it's ready to share with the world. And then, a really good, strong PR plan could make or break your launch sometimes, most of the time, I would say. So this is a pretty crucial part of any product launch. I recommend that everybody has a strategy when it comes to launching a new product. That includes public relations, obviously marketing, social media, all of those things, but we're going to focus on public relations in this particular podcast. No product launch is complete without a solid media strategy. So while there's a lot to be done, we came up with our 5 top tips, let's say, to make sure your next product launch is successful and you're able to measure it. So the 5 tips are: plan ahead, have a detailed plan, pitch media early, follow up, and track your progress. Now I'm going to go into each one of these in very good detail so you have the information you need and not just these 5 quick tips. And then we also will have a few different resources on the PR Playbook podcast page on silvertelegram.com so that you can download and prepare yourself and plan ahead and have a detailed plan and do all the things I just said. So we will kick it off with number 1, plan ahead. Planning is key. So before you get started, you should definitely have a few things prepared for the actual launch of the campaign. So one of those things would be the company press kit. And that's something that we discussed in the podcast number 2. And you can check out the resources on how to create a press kit, but definitely have your press kit ready, and that podcast will tell you exactly what you need in it. A targeted and launch media list. So this is a very specific media list that is targeted towards people that cover your industry, your type of news, your competitors. You can find these people by doing a little bit of Google research, and I know a lot of you people don't have access to a lot of the expensive PR databases that we use, but that's not the only way to create a media list. You can create a very strong media list by searching your competitors, searching keywords in your industry, and finding out who writes about them. Make sure that the reporter, they usually have some kind of bio somewhere. So whether it's Twitter or the media website or even on LinkedIn, make sure they cover your industry. That's probably one of the biggest pet peeves of media is people do not follow what they're writing. So they're pitching them the wrong thing. Just because the person's name sounds exciting does not mean they might cover you. So make sure you're doing your research. We'll talk about this maybe a little bit more as we move forward. The other thing you should have is 2 to 3 pitch angles based on your target audience. So typically when we do a product launch, we have 2 to 3 pitch angles that include a business angle, maybe an investor angle, maybe a technology innovation angle, could be a vertical industry like parenting or sports or travel. So figure out where your product lies in that perspective and make sure that you have pitches for each one of those target media because they're going to cover that specialty area. And the more targeted your pitch is, the more likely it is to get picked up. And definitely have a product overview or service overview or launch overview. What is it that you're launching? Have the details laid out. This is kind of like a cheat sheet for you so that when people do respond, you have something to give them real quickly. That's in addition to your press kit, of course, which has company bios, your company profile, your product overviews, images that you might want to share, anything like that. Pitching ahead of a product launch is probably one of the most important things that you could be doing. So planning ahead should include your pitch plan. This gives you time to tweak your presentation, perfect your message. Maybe your first pitch doesn't land properly. You can revamp and do another one. My recommendation on this is at least 2 weeks in advance. You don't want to do it too close to your launch, just in case people are on vacation or they're at an event or some other news comes up. But you also don't want to do it so far away where they're going to forget about you. I think a month is a little bit too far. Usually 2 to 3 weeks is a good time to start vetting the media, and then they will let you know, like, hey, you know what, hit me back when it's a day before or a couple days before, or go ahead and share the press release and I'll be able to agree to it under embargo, which basically means they'll hold it without releasing the information. So there's a few different ways you can go about that, but definitely plan ahead. 2 to 3 weeks, you should start pitching in advance. And then I would say 2 to 3 months, you should start preparing your plan, which is tip number 2. Have a detailed plan. Sweating the details is very good when working with the media, and really just anything. Ask yourself the following questions to jumpstart your media planning. So first, what do you want the media to do? This is one thing that people fail to include all the time. Call to action. Do you want them to repost your press release? Do you want them to write a feature? Do you want them to review a product? Do you want them to mention you in a roundup? Do you want them to post on social media? What is your call to action? Make sure you have an idea of what that should be and what it is that you want. When you ask for what you want, it's a lot easier to get it. The media does not want to play guessing games with you. If it is a review product or some kind of hardware or something, how are they going to review the product? So how are you going to get it to them? How are they going to get it back? Are they going to have to give it back? Some reviewers do not return products because it's cumbersome. Some reviewers will return products if you send them a label. So when you do develop a review program, make sure you know exactly who's going to manage it and how the process is going to pan out. Also, make sure that you have any supplementary materials that they might need. So if there's a quick start guide or any tips and tricks to get started, you definitely want to make sure that they have that and they provide that's provided to them. In addition, I would track very closely the packages. So once it arrives, you can follow up immediately and say, hey, I know that the package arrived. Do you have any questions? Make yourself available to them. Who do you want to connect with? So what newspapers and magazines are your target audience? What exactly, and this kind of goes back to your goals of the product launch. Do you want to gain customers, gain brand awareness, gain attention from investors? Figure out what those people read and go after those publications. That's what's going to get you the best ROI on your time investment of doing PR, or even your regular investment of investing in a PR agency or person. Which reporter from the outlet is the best fit for my pitch? I think that is, again, going back to kind of planning and prepping and researching. This is a key pet peeve of many media, is that I'm not the right fit for your pitch, or I'm not interested in your pitch. Make sure that they're the right person by doing a little bit of research, scanning Twitter, going on Facebook, going on LinkedIn, just checking the media outlet that you're trying to get into and see what they've been writing. Make sure that this person is actually targeted in your industry. And last but not least, what will help them build their story? So every media person can get likes, views, pickups. They want their editor to see that what they're writing is impactful to the media outlet. So make sure that you are arming them with all the tools they need to make an amazing story. And that first piece is that press release and making sure that you're highlighting what's important in your announcement, and then giving them resources like third-party validation or quotes or images or the press kit, so that you're supplementing whatever they're doing. Make yourself available to the media. Don't put out a press release and not be able to get back to them to do an interview. Make sure that you have identified your key spokesperson and know exactly how you're going to move the needle and move the process forward if someone does request a media interview. Now, the good thing about the busyness of today is that most people will want to do an email interview, and they kind of opt out of the phone telephone briefing that we used to do. But there are definitely outlets that want to do the phone briefing as well. Make sure that you prepare yourself by reading what people have written. Make sure you're not surprised by questions they might ask you. You can probably tell the temperament of a media person by looking at their last articles to see if they'll have a positive or negative view of your news. So take your time to take a look at that, or have somebody research it before you have a conversation with those people. Pitch early is our next tip. So don't wait till the last minute. I think I mentioned this a few times already, but obviously this is very important. Some of these people are getting 50 pitches a day. That's an average. Some are getting more, some might be getting less, but this is a key factor in getting the kind of coverage you want. So make sure that you're considerate of that. You could take a look at our resource, How Pitching Works, in the podcast show notes, so that you can get a grasp on the best ways to get a reporter's attention, what you should include in your pitch, and some other best practices. But make sure that you are pitching early, to say the least, I would say. Number 4, follow up. The initial pitch is typically just a warm up. I call it an amuse-bouche to the whole pitch process, but you've got to make sure that you follow up with media contacts. And this is where public relations professionals come in and really do the job. I think the biggest complaint I've gotten from startup founders or marketing teams is, yeah, I sent them an email. They never responded. Well, yeah, they're not necessarily required to respond to you. And if you don't follow up, maybe they don't feel like you care. There could be a number of reasons that they do not respond to your pitch. It could be bad timing, they could have forgotten, they could be traveling, or they could not be interested genuinely. But we implement a 3 follow-up rule usually, and that's we follow up about 3 days apart for at least 3 times before we give up on a contact and move on to the next person, or we wait till they say no. If they're moving the conversation along, then obviously they're somewhat interested and we keep trying to pitch them. Every time you pitch, you come up with some kind of new piece of impactful information that might sway them your way. So when you're following up, you're not just saying, hey, did you read my email? But you're saying, hey, did you read my email? And here's how I'm adding value to this email. And this is why our news is important again. And this is what other people have said about our news, or this is another piece of research or material that you can use to build a story for us. So make sure you're following up with value. And the other thing is, if you have a phone number, I would not hesitate to call. I have been told not to call people before, so you might get shut down, but there are a number of reporters that appreciate a phone call to follow up if it makes sense for them. So they don't want you following up if you don't know who you're talking to, but if you've done your research and you know that they could possibly be interested and because of the area that they write in, then I think a phone call is definitely worth it. And you may be able to find their phone number publicly on their website or on the media site's contact page. Last but not least, track your progress, measure results. People say PR isn't measurable, but it's just that you're not measuring it properly. There's a number of ways to measure PR. Definitely through the number of articles that have posted. We typically measure that through potential reach, which is unique monthly visitors of the publication. However, you can also track your progress by sentiment and get the sentiment of the articles that are posted. You definitely can set up Google alerts, Bitly links, anything that will help you track traffic from the articles to your website. If you don't have Google Analytics, then you should get it or set it up at least so that you can see what is driving the most traffic to your site during a product launch. And it's pretty easy to monitor because you're going to pick a specific day when you're launching your press release and your product. And you can usually tie and attribute traffic to different sources based on what they are. So if TechCrunch is pushing traffic to your site, you could probably associate it with a good PR launch. So make sure that you're tracking with things like Google Analytics. Social mention is a really good one to track hashtags and social posts. Google Alerts, obviously, to track the coverage that's being posted. And there are links that are typically posted if you do push out a press release through a wire. There is a difference between stories and links. Links are great for SEO. They are not necessarily long living stories. Feature stories typically have a staff writer associated with it, typically have a different headline than your press release. So that's how you know if that story really got picked up or not. If someone took the time to edit or craft something else from your press release, as opposed to just reposting the newswire link. When it all boils down to it, a good PR launch is planning, precision, and follow-up. But just like the development of your product, PR campaign is an exciting process that is worth the attention to detail. So make sure you are definitely taking the time to put something together 2 to 3 months in advance, like I mentioned before. It is not a last minute task, and it won't turn out well. If you do it last minute, you'll wonder why you didn't get the coverage you wanted. So set up your spreadsheets, research media, start planning early. If you do have a plan and you need a second opinion, you can feel free to share it with me at ronjini@thesilvertelegram.com. I hope this was helpful in planning your next PR launch. Thank you for listening to the PR Playbook podcast. And to find more resources on public relations, you can visit our website at thesilvertelegram.com/the PR Playbook podcast, where you'll find the resources I mentioned in this podcast. And if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions for future topics, please send them to podcast@thesilvertelegram.com, and we will look forward to getting to them soon. Thank you for listening.